what J.J. Abrams did with Star Wars, with The Force Awakens. He essentially rebooted Star Wars without rebooting Star Wars.
Houston, what are your thoughts on Hollywood reboots? What are we doing wrong? What are we doing right?
I think reboots in general, I'm not a huge fan of them. I think, in large respect, people talk about, they ruined my childhood and things like that. Like we have nostalgia about, the things that we loved before. But at the same time, reboots reintroduce the story to a new generation that wouldn't necessarily go back and watch an older film. And we have to understand that reality of it. If I love Ghostbusters when I was a kid, but I tried to show Ghostbusters to my little girl, and it just wasn't jibing with her. Like it's different filmmaking, different storytelling styles in different eras, right? I mean, even with Star Wars, the original Star Wars, she just thinks it's like a weird old movie because the filmmaking's so different now, right? And so she likes the new Star Wars movies more than the old Star Wars movies. When I think artistically, the old Star Wars movies were better. But with reboots, I think is there a generation of kids that will actually go back and watch the old 21 Jump Street series? Probably not. Should they? Yeah, of course they should. Of course, yeah. But will they? Probably not. And so that means there's going to be a generation of kids that don't know the 21 Jump Street story. And so rebooting 21 Jump Street in a different way reintroduces the IP to a new generation. So in that regard, I'm down with it. I like it. I think though, what's better is let's figure out how to do a soft reboot, but still extend the story. I think that's the sweet spot. And you really look to see, something like what J.J. Abrams did with Star Wars, with The Force Awakens. He essentially rebooted Star Wars without rebooting Star Wars. He technically told a new story, but if you look at the way that movie was structured and the story and the characters, it was basically a soft reboot of Star Wars for people that haven't seen Star Wars. And it basically retold A New Hope just in a very new and different way. But at the same time, for legacy fans, it still extended the story for us. So technically, it was new story for us. Didn't ruin our childhood because they weren't, just wiping away the old and reestablishing the new. And that's what fans don't like about reboots. They're saying the thing that we love before is now no more. We're erasing that from canon, and we're now creating this new thing, and we're going to start here. Comic book fans, it's referred to as a renumbering. When there was Superman 731, issue 731, they'll say we're going to renumber, we're going to start over number 1, which means we're going to wipe out the canon of all the old stuff. That's always painful for fans to do. But that's essentially what reboots do. They say the old Hawaii Five-0 is no longer. Now it's the new Hawaii Five-0. And the fans of the old get surly about that because they're precious and there's nostalgia and there's memories attached to it and things like that. Even though, technically is the new stuff better because there's better filmmaking techniques and better technology. Maybe, probably, that's a subjective call, right? But I think the sweet spot is let's figure out how to do soft reboots that extend for legacy audience, but create a new entry point in for a new audience. Find that intersection. If you look at what they're doing with the Ghostbusters, and my little girl didn't like the old Ghostbusters, then the female Ghostbusters that when that dropped, that just didn't work because Ghostbusters fans rejected it because they're saying, wait a minute, like those aren't my Ghostbusters. I love Dan Aykroyd and I love, I love my Ghostbusters. Where's Egon and all that? Like that's the kind of nerdy stuff that fans get into. Now, there's also the layer of, the misogynistic, these are women and we didn't like that. There's that whole sort of political angle to it. But I think in a large degree, legacy Ghostbusters fans just didn't like their Ghostbusters being deleted for new Ghostbusters. I think if it was all men, it probably wouldn't have worked either, right? May have been a different commentary around it. Listen, and you know, of course, I'm not denying the fact that there were people that were just misogynistic jerks about the whole thing. Of course, there was that. I don't know if that was the bulk of it. I think it just wouldn't work regardless, because that movie is so precious to so many people. But now it's a whole different conversation with the new Ghostbusters movies that's coming out, which effectively is a reboot of Ghostbusters for people who have never seen Ghostbusters, but it still extends Ghostbusters for people that have seen Ghostbusters, the legacy audience, right? And so you have to try to find that sweet spot, I think, of how do we extend and continue rather than stop, delete, and then restart, right? And so I think I think is a better way forward than just the hard reboot. And maybe there's a different term for it, but I think, you know, you have to get a buy-in from a legacy audience, especially something like iconic like Ghostbusters, right? That has a fan community around it. Maybe there wasn't a fan community around Hawaii Five-0, or maybe there was, I'm not sure. But things that have actual fan community around it, I really feel like you have to continue rather than just restart and, you know, delete everything that's old. I mean, they're facing this with the reboot of the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise, and which is crazy. They're already talking about rebooting Pirates of the Caribbean. I feel like it was just out 5 minutes ago, but it's going to be a hard reboot, which means they're just going to start over and start telling different stories with a new Jack Sparrow, and that's that. For all the fans that love Johnny Depp as Jack Sparrow and all those old movies, then that's going to be a hard, tough pill to swallow, to say all this stuff that I love doesn't count anymore, and because now it's this new thing, and there's going to be a division in the fandom. You can't divide fandom like that and expect to be a success. And so yeah, I'm not ideologically against reboots of like all reboots are terrible. I think some are smart and some reintroduce fans to new stuff. Like, what if would I ever want them to reboot The Princess Bride? No, right? But do kids today go back and watch The Princess Bride? Will they ever? Maybe. I don't know. Like, that's the calculation, right? But I think it would be better to do The Princess Bride now, so many years later, that extends the original, but still is a soft entry point for new fans, but still serves the legacy audience. How do we find that balance? I'm not saying it's easy. J.J. Abrams did it with Force Awakens, did it really well. And I think the Ghostbusters is doing that really well. But it's not easy. It's a balancing act. But I feel like in today's fandom-driven market, you've got to find that balance.